Ring of Honor, June of 2004. We got World Title Classic and Survival of the Fittest. A new era for Ring of Honor. They got a new address. They got a new P.O. box. A new way to get your DVDs. New logos. New match types. New... Oh yeah, and by the way, we kick off one of the greatest trilogies in wrestling history with one of the best matches in wrestling history here. It's a very interesting time for Ring of Honor, a lot to get into, so you better stay right there. And just let me get to it already, all right? Jeez. It's the Apron Bump Podcast.
Yeah. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started. Yeah, back.
What is up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle. How's everybody doing today? Everybody's still alive after the election? I'm recording this the day on election day, actually. So obviously the results are not in. It's like early afternoon here, but man, hopefully this podcast gets out to the masses. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time here. Hopefully nuclear warfare doesn't take us all out. As a result, I voted for Gerald Briscoe myself. I made sure JBL wasn't alone. So, but any hoozle, Ring of Honor, June of 2004 is here, folks. Big month for the ring, for the Honorous ring. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we got World Title Classic and Survival of the Fittest. And if you're watching on YouTube, by the way, I'm gonna have a lot of visual aids. I think there's a pill to cure it now, so don't worry about that. But yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, I got the cards up here. I'll also post them in the description in case you are curious. But we're gonna go over these two shows, made the major bullet points. Obviously, we're going to talk about Samoa Joe versus CM Punk, the first match of their trilogy occurring on night one, World Title Classic. We also got Ultimate Survival. We got Ultimate Endurance. We'll go over what those goofy ass names mean. Man, they're really trying to find like these defining match types to like annual, I don't know if they're like trying to be like annual matches, like Royal Rumble-esque type things, but like every match has like goofy fucking, we have the 6-man Mayhem, we got 4-corner Survival, we got Scrambles, it's all silly, but there's a lot of good stuff within the silliness, which we'll get into. But let me just lay out the cards for you guys right out front, just so we know what we're getting into. We got World Title Classic occurring on June 12th, 2004 from Dayton, Ohio, from the Montgomery County Fairground. And on night two, we got Survival of the Fittest coming at us from Essington, Pennsylvania, from the Ramada Inn. It's in a fucking hotel. Interesting. There's only 300 people there. Wow. You know, it's the first night has 500 people. Night two has 300 people. Pretty low. No, I mean, I guess for an indie, I guess it's pretty solid, right? But it felt like so much more. Like the energy of these shows are really good. Really good shows. Both shows were. Ring of Honor is really starting to hit it's I mean, I say they're starting to hit their stride, but it's more of like a tumultuous period for the company, because we talked about the Rob Feinstein stuff in the last episode, which, by the way, if you're curious about the history of Ring of Honor and you like to go back to the beginning and just kind of journey along this entire road of Ring of Honor to where we're at now in mid 04, I have covered every single Ring of Honor show that has happened so far in history. So you can go to the link in the description, or you can go to apronbump.com, go to the episodes tab and select, what are we talking about? Ring of Honor. ROH, and it'll bring you to all of the episodes I've covered chronologically. You can check it out on YouTube as well. There's a ROH playlist. While I'm here, rate, review, subscribe, like, follow, spit in my belly button until it comes out of my mouth. Do all those things to support the podcast. Much appreciated. Apron bump on all the social medias, yada, yada, yada. Okay, I'm plugged up. We're all plugged up now. Got that plug in there nice and deep. Now, what was I talking about? Oh, tumultuous. I'm never going to get that word right. Tumultuous. Doesn't even sound like a word. It sounds like a football player's name. Tumultuous. It's a crazy time for Ring of Honor because the Rob Feinstein controversy. We get into that in my latest episode, the Generation Next episode, that caused a lot of controversy, obviously with old RF getting booted, and they had to find, new funding and a new way to distribute their DVDs, the talent. There was a lot of issues because they were sharing talent with TNA, and that pretty much put the kibosh on that, which, by the way, AJ Styles, inaugural Pure Champion, current Pure Champion, that caused a whole bunch of issues, which we'll get into here in a second. But, there were Ring of Honor, there was questions of whether the company would even survive. And I think with this month of wrestling, the shows they were able to put on, I think I would have to think it was a pretty reassuring couple of events here, because a lot of good stuff, a lot of good stars, being built here, kind of your stalwarts, your foundations of the company, putting on good performances as well. Fun shows. We'll get into the nitty gritty of everything, but yeah, very strange time for Ring of Honor. And it's all really laid out like at the very beginning of night one. When so commentary, we got Gabe Sapolsky and Mark Nolte, I believe the other guy is. It doesn't matter. But Gabe Sapolsky, he has gone by the alias of Chris Lovey on commentary. I've made fun of him for his Jerry Seinfeld on meth type of commentary. He's gotten better over the years and months or what have you. But Gabe, or Chris Lovey, I guess, comes out and he's like, basically he says that I've been lying. I'm not Chris Lovey. I'm actually Jimmy Bauer. So he has a new alias. I'm a little confused why. Is this Chris Lovey? Does associate Chris Lovey with Rob Feinstein? Is there like a weird connection there? Or are we just trying to separate as much from the old era of Ring of Honor as possible? Seems a bit unnecessary, but it is what it is. Just go by your real name, if nothing else, if you're going to change what you go by. But I don't know, weird moment there in the beginning. Then he gets into the new address, like a new PO box for Ring of Honor, new phone number, announces that they're now going to be distributing DVDs in-house. So they've started their own DVD distribution for Ring of Honor. So just a lot of, logistical things. It's interesting to see them kind of separate themselves from what they were in the past 2 years. Speaking of changing how they've been doing things, the Pure title. Let's talk about the Pure title for a second. It's been a big topic in the past, couple episodes. 04 crowning the first ever Pure champion in AJ Styles. They had a whole tournament. They had the rules established. It was a whole thing. But ever since AJ won the title, he did have one rematch with CM Punk, which was the finals of that tournament. But we haven't seen AJ since then. A lot of it's due to the Rob Feinstein stuff. But essentially, Ring of Honor does not have access to AJ Styles anymore. And AJ happens to be the Pure champion. So what do? They scrap the Pure title. And now, before it was the Pure Wrestling Championship. That is the championship that AJ won and holds. No more Pure Wrestling Championship. Now it's just going to be the Pure Championship. So no more wrestling? I don't know. Seems like the opposite of what this title is supposed to represent, but whatever. So they're going to have a new Pure title, which is, I guess, a different lineage than the Pure Wrestling title. Which my question is, does that mean AJ Styles is still the Pure Wrestling Champion? 20-year reign? That's crazy. But yeah, they'll have a tournament to crown a new Pure champion next month. But that's where we're at with the Pure title. I'm hoping this gives them an opportunity, because I talked about, that initial pure tournament, how it was AJ Styles, CM Punk in the finals. I didn't love it because it didn't seem to follow what that title was supposed to represent. It was supposed to represent just like the pure, just graps, like no fanfare, no flash, no pomp, no circumstance. Character is secondary. Let's just get in there and just grapple. Let's just take our clothes off, put oil in our bodies, and just mess around on the mat until somebody loses. Is basically the thing. Guys like John Walters, Nigel McGuinness, Matt Stryker, Josh Daniels, like these lower card guys, lower mid card guys that could use a prize to vie over, I thought would be a great thing to have, but to just give it to AJ Styles, who's already a huge name, already a former NWA champion, and then CM Punk's in the picture. He's like the biggest star in Ring of Honor. It made it feel like a secondary title rather than a separate division to me. And I'm hoping going forward with this new pure title, they kind of segment the divisions a little bit, but just another thing to follow for the next few episodes. But that's where we're at with that. But while we're talking about things that are revamped, let's talk about the rankings system, shall we? So it's kind of been a running joke so far. The top 5 rankings. Commentary really drives it home. It's to be on the top 5 rankings. I mean, that's just prestigious in itself to just say to people on the street, "Hey, I was on the Ring of Honor top 5 rankings." It's been a joke. If you followed AEW when they were doing their ranking system, Ring of Honor here had similar problems in that they didn't really follow it. It was kind of ambiguous and it was very vague, and the top contender didn't always get the title shot. So it's like the rankings really ended up not meaning anything. So you would think that would cause them to be like, okay, we've seen this ranking system. Talking about Ring of Honor, not AEW. You would think Ring of Honor would be like, okay, this ranking system is kind of goofy. It didn't really make sense. Didn't really factor into the booking or just the presentation of the show. So maybe we just scrap it. But no, what they do is make it even more fucking complicated and convoluted. So I'm gonna just put a clip here of Jimmy Bauer, I guess his name is, of Gabe Sapolsky explaining this new concept called the Contenders Ring. By the way, they don't even know. They keep calling it either the Contenders Ring or the Contenders Circle. So I don't know what they go forward with calling it. They even say like, "Oh, it's a work in progress. We're not really totally sure what the name's going to be." But it's. I'm just going to leave a clip here because he can explain it, as well as I could. I don't know. Just take a listen here.
And round robin challenge 3. And now it's time for the Contenders Ring. I've finally been told what it is. It will be the new way that ROH determines contenders for its titles. There is no longer a top 5 rankings or even a ranking system. Basically, there is a staff that voted on the top 5 rankings. That same staff will vote for the Contenders Ring. The athletes in the Contenders Ring will not be in any order. And in order to be in the Contenders Ring, you have to get named on 75% of the ballots. So basically, it's kind of like a Hall of Fame voting, kind of like in Major League Baseball or in the Wrestling Observer, where you have to get named on a certain amount of ballots. You are in the Contenders Ring, and it's just prestigious to be mentioned in that, because only the elite are going to be in the Contenders Ring. The voting is going to be determined by recent won-loss record, your availability in ROH, your inherent skill, and your quality of opposition. So only the top few men will make it into the Contenders Circle, and no doubt the winner of this one will be one of the top athletes in the Contenders Circle.
So the way you describe it, and what an interesting contest, you're going to be rewarded for getting the toughest possible opponent. So somebody like Hydro, who challenged CM Punk and had a terrific match and a close loss with CM Punk, actually gets helped more than somebody that, say, would have won against a lesser opponent.
Right about that, Mark Nolte. And in order to get named on 75% of the ballots, you really have to accomplish.
So the Contenders Ring is so let me just so we have what we had previously and what we have now. Previously, we had the top 5 rankings, which was determined by a panel. How many people are on the panel? Who's on the panel? Who knows? But this panel determined who the top 5 contenders were, and that dictated who got championships going forward. The contenders ring is a vague amount of guys. So it could be 5, it could be 2 guys, it could be 1 guy, it could be 20 guys. It's you're like in a threshold to be considered to be in contendership for titles. Kind of sounds like the same fucking thing, doesn't it? Like, it's just like, yeah, wins and losses, ability, what did he say? Like how available you are for bookings with Ring of Honor, quality of opponents. Is this not what was factored into the top 5 rankings? So all in all of that to say, there's no change. By the way, the rankings, contendership ring, who gives a fuck? Whoever's doing the best gets title shots. Like, so it's so unnecessarily convoluted. Like, I don't know, man. If you're building a certain title matches, you're gonna have the guy win and build himself up and get there. Like, whether you have a ranking system, a contendership ring, or none of those, you're gonna get to the same place. So why is there this convoluted like route to get there? Unless it's to like, in theory, it makes like other non-title matches mean something, because it's like, oh, if you win this match, you're in the contenders ring. But also like, it doesn't matter who wins, because like, let's say 2 guys that are not champions are facing each other. If it's like a good match, then the way they explained it here, it's like, well, they're both in the contenders ring now. So it doesn't really matter who wins, actually. So it doesn't make the matches more enjoyable to watch. There's no stakes added. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, and I didn't clip it here, but Jimmy Bauer is like, however many people are in this ring, it's then up to the matchmakers to determine who gets the title matches. So that's how it was in the beginning without rankings. So what is this ring? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. The way, if you're listening to me explain it and you're like, Kyle, that's kind of confusing this is a representative of how confusing it's not confusing. It's just unnecessarily contrived. So many hoops, unnecessary hoops to hop through to get to a route that it could just be a straight line. So I don't know, man. They're trying to add this sports kind of vibe to it, and it just doesn't work. I don't know how long it lasts, or if it ever really even gets underway. Who knows? That'll be another thing we watch, I guess. But just interesting to see like Ring of Honor trying new things. I do applaud them, I guess, for trying something new. But at some point, you just gotta be like, can we just let the guys wrestle and have storylines and have characters and like just do that thing? The thing that's always worked. But I don't know, man. So that's kind of this new paint of coat that's been put on Ring of Honor in various different ways, and entering a new era. I feel like I've said that a lot about Ring of Honor. They've been entering new, like, a lot of shifts in this company. But let's just get into it, shall we? I know why you guys are here. I know why you guys are here. You're here to hear about Ray Gordy's debut in Ring of Honor, otherwise known as Jesse, from Jesse and Festus. Now, CM Punk, Samoa Joe. Let's talk about it, gang. Let's get into it. Let's stop dilly-dallying and get right into the spark of one of the greatest trilogies in pro wrestling history. So as of recording this, we saw within the past few years, what is it, like 2 years ago, I guess, at this point, we saw CM Punk and Samoa Joe go at it at Wembley Stadium. Really good match. But the foundation of that match was set up with this match that we're about to talk about in the following 2 matches that they would go on to have later in the year. So, the Ring of Honor World Championship is on the line. Night 1 in Dayton at World Title Classic. Hence the name World Title Classic. we got the champion Samoa Joe defending against CM Punk. So weird kind of setup here. It almost feels kind of out of nowhere in following this stuff, right? Like and covering all of these shows, seeing the build up, like CM Punk's been embroiled with Ricky Steamboat, like that weird thing, which he also teases. I guess they're gonna have another confrontation next month / match. It was kind of unclear what it would be, but and CM Punk is also the tag team champion with Colt Cabana. So that last show I covered, they had a whole the round robin challenge. So they had several different tag team title matches, and then the following night they had like a scramble match or like a street fight for the tag team titles. I forget which one. But CM Punk's been embroiled in the tag division, and now all of a sudden he is the number one contender for the world title. So weird kind of setup here. And by the way, before I recorded earlier today, I re-listened to the shoot interview with Samoa Joe and CM Punk that occurred like roughly a year after this. It's the famous shoot, whatever it is, Ring of Honor videos. I forget what it is, but where Punk even like voiced that kind of, he was like, why am I getting this random title shot? My win-loss record isn't great. And he even cuts a promo here on this show. He's like, look, I know my win-loss record isn't the best. But when it comes to the big matches, I always win, which is not totally true. He's lost to like Raven and other ones, but but he's here challenging for the world title. Yeah. Earlier in the show, both guys have these like weird interviews in the parking lot, which again, going back to that shoot interview, apparently like the Dayton locker room was super small and they didn't have room to get dressed. So they had to get dressed in the parking lot, which is, that's where we're at. So, but they do these promos in the parking lot individually with, I don't know, some correspondent, which by the way, the audio in the parking lot was weirdly better than these shoddy hallway promos that they generally do. But like I said, Punk says that he wins all the big matches and he's going to win tonight. Joe pokes fun at the Pure title getting scrapped. He's like, that's a failed title, and the only title that matters is the one that I hold, the Ring of Honor title. So that kind of builds up to the match itself. So the match, both guys come out. Before the match gets underway, both guys are in the ring. Les Thatcher comes out, wrestled in like the 60s and 70s, I believe. But he's here to unveil a new championship design for the Ring of Honor World Championship. Why? Because I guess it's just as a symbol for Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe has made it a world title. He's defended it in England and Germany, the US, of course, and this will be his 20th defense of the title. So Les, I guess, is here to christen the title as a real world championship. So it is now the Ring of Honor World Championship officially. And he unveils a new belt, which I didn't recognize the design. It kind of seemed like kind of a generic belt, like the existing Ring of Honor belt, the one that's been, that Joe has been holding and defending, is the title that I associate with Ring of Honor, and I know a lot of other people do, like this era of Ring of Honor, like that's the belt. So when Les Thatcher came out and unveiled this new belt, I was like, what the fuck? What is it? I didn't recognize it. So I figured it doesn't stick around, which we'll touch on why it maybe doesn't stick around later in the show. But so yeah, that's kind of the precursor for the match. Match gets underway. Bell rings. Samoa Joe, CM Punk won. Spoiler alert. This match is a 60-minute, 1 hour draw. That's what 60 minutes is called. A 60-minute draw. Time elapses. No winner. Samoa Joe retains the title. I think most people know that at this point, but in case you didn't, there it is. But I lay that out there in the beginning because I think that detail of this being a 60-minute match is so important in highlighting how great this shit was. Because not every match, a wrestling match, like just the amount of minutes doesn't equate to quality. Like longer doesn't always mean better. I've seen a bunch of 3-minute matches that were better than a lot of 40-minute matches that I've seen in my life. Like for example, I think wasn't I can't remember if it was 45 minutes or 60 minutes. There was a 4-way match at Final Battle 02 that just dragged, bro. Like it was so fucking boring. And I don't even remember who. I guess Samoa Joe was in it, I would assume, and he won. I don't remember anything about it. It wasn't good. This match here flew by. And you know what? Maybe not flew by isn't really the right way, because it did feel grueling. Like you could feel the grueling nature of it. That's the word that I think best describes this match, is grueling, because it was Samoa Joe, CM Punk. Neither guy particularly. I guess CM Punk is kind of known for his cardio. I know he had a bunch of 60-minute plus matches with Chris Hero and other promotions, but Samoa Joe, you look at him, you're like, this guy ain't going 60 minutes, but he did, and they both did it in spectacular fashion. Just the pacing of this match was just, it was very, like, first of all, I've never seen this match, by the way. I think I've seen their second match. I don't believe I've seen this one. So I was pretty much coming in cold. The thing that struck me was about this whole match. The thing that struck me were the headlocks. The headlocks was the big story of this match, which is such like a mundane thing. But the way it was incorporated into this match was so good, because Samoa Joe, we know who Samoa Joe is, right? Big tank of a man, explosive. He's got the martial arts, the jiu-jitsu, the big high impact moves, the intensity. You know, I don't even know if I don't know what Samoa Joe's longest title defense is at this point. It can't be. I wouldn't be surprised if he has not had a match above 20 minutes. Definitely not past 30. But a lot of his matches aren't that long. You know, it's very, I'm not going to compare him to Goldberg because it's not that extreme, but it's, Joe comes out, it's bop, 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 slam, 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 ole, kick, 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 choke you out, muscle buster kind of thing, right? So to see Joe in this type of match was very interesting. And he was in this type of match because CM Punk was desperate to control the tempo of the match. Both guys were, but Punk's method in controlling the tempo of the match was headlocks. Like CM Punk was, he was so persistent and just locking in headlocks on Samoa Joe. Like Joe would get this like burst of energy. He would like hit the ropes. He would be going for a big kick, and then Punk would counter and just say, headlock. He would hold him there. Like Joe hits his big boot, snapmare, chop to the back, kick to the head, hits the ropes, big knee. Wait, the knee misses, and then Punk locks into headlock again. It was almost to the point of comedy. No matter what Joe did, no matter how much speed and momentum he picked up, no matter how intense he got, he would just find himself back into a headlock. And that's like the first like fucking 30 minutes of the match is just that, which sounds like if you're just listening to me describe it that way and you haven't seen it, you might be like, what the fuck? That sounds boring as shit. But it's the way you can see the tension build in Joe. You can see him starting to boil over a little bit. And that's obviously what CM Punk's strategy is here, is to wear him down slowly, to neuter him from what he typically does. And I thought that just played out great. Like Joe, he hits like a back suplex on Punk, but Punk takes the suplex just so he can hold on to the headlock. I mean, it's just pretty much through the whole match, but mainly that first half was a lot of that. But once it goes outside is when Samoa Joe starts to take control a little bit, goes for his Ole kick into the barricade, but Punk counters. He slides back into the ring, but Joe follows him and just hits him with a whirlwind of strikes, slaps, kicks, chops. Punk runs to the outside, only to be met by a suicide dive by Samoa Joe. And it's at this point, Joe's got that momentum. The energy's with Joe. Punk tries to counter. He tries to hit a Hurricane Rana off the apron, but Joe catches him in like a powerbomb position and swings him into the barricade, which just looked and sounded so brutal. Hits him with 3 Olay kicks into the barricades, which, by the way, if you're not familiar, it's a face wash into the steel barricade. He kicks Punk's face into the steel 3 times in the ring. Now he's throwing Punk all over the place. Uranagis, face washes in the corner. Punk starts to fight back a little bit. So now it's at this point. I should have noted down like timestamps here, but we're probably like 35, 40 minutes into the match at this point. So you can start to feel the grueling nature of this match. Like, it's not just a sprint. Somebody will hit a move and then they sell, which is just, you don't notice how little selling you see nowadays until you watch this match. Go watch this match. You'll appreciate both guys individually, first of all, but you'll just appreciate the art of selling. Like Punk, he hits Joe with some forearms. He hits the ropes like he's about to hit something big and then just locks in a sleeper hold instead. But now Joe, because before these headlock, chinlock, sleeper, whatever you want to call it, it was just to kind of slow Joe down. But now it is starting to take effect. Punk has Joe down from the sleeper. Almost down and out, but Joe fights back, hits an enziguri to fight out of it. Joe locks in a Boston Crab. Punk gets to the ropes, and both guys just collapse. We're probably like 45 minutes into the match at this point. You can see these guys are dripping in sweat. Every strike, you could just see a cloud of water just propel from their bodies. It is just championship rounds at this point. Punk has Joe on the top rope. He's going for a back suplex, which is like a move that kind of feels mundane nowadays, just like a regular back suplex from the top rope. But the way Punk fights for it, like he gets Joe up there and like Joe's fighting out. He's hitting him with the palm of his hand to try to knock him off. But Punk is like, no, I'm going to fucking get this suplex. And he's like, tries 3 times and he finally gets it. And when he hits it, the crowd erupts. Like, it felt this relatively benign, mundane, see it every night move feels like the biggest deal in the world just based on what these guys have put into the match up to this point. Like I said, I'm gonna come back to this word, grueling. The grueling way that Punk got that suplex to hit, it just made it feel so impactful. Joe, like, he's not able to capitalize because both guys are spent, and Punk had to put so much effort into hitting that move. Joe comes back with a snap power slam right into an arm bar, which is not a move he's ever finished anybody with. But we've gotten to this point in the match where it's like both guys are so worn down that it feels like any move could end the match. Like, that's just based on how they've built it up to this point. It's like, all right, it's got to end at some point, right? So maybe it's this arm bar from Joe that's going to do it. But Punk gets to the ropes, and we're still cooking. By the way, again, I don't have the exact timestamps here. There were no finishers attempted in this match until, I don't know, minute 45 or so, which is, again, not to compare it to modern day stuff again too much, but like, I feel like in the modern day, to have an epic match, there's almost like this formula that everybody uses. You hit your finisher, I kick out. I hit my finisher, you kick out. You hit yours from the top rope, I hit mine on the apron. I kick out at 1, I get up, fighting spirit, double down, whatever. It's every epic quote unquote match feels the same nowadays. But these guys have already painted just a masterpiece and have not utilized any of their finishing moves for the first 45 minutes of this match, roughly. It's a testament to the quality of what these guys are doing, is what I'm saying. What I'm doing here, because I know a lot of people are familiar with this match. I know a lot of people are probably even more familiar with it than I am. But the thing that I need to emphasize here for all of you, first of all, watch this match if you haven't. This is fucking wrestling. Like, they are creating drama. They are creating an energy in the crowd. You can hear the crowd. 60 minutes of this match, they were molten hot at the end. They weren't fatigued. They weren't waiting for it to be over. There was a 5 more minutes chant at the end of it. They wanted more. That's how good this shit is, man. That's how fucking good. It's just wrestling. This is the pure art. This is, not a ton of fancy moves in this. Not a ton of overly stiff strikes. There's no blood. I don't think there's no blood in this match. There's no gimmicks or stipulations or storyline really implications. It is just two guys just wrestling the shit out of each other. So good. So good. And they're not utilizing finisher kickouts to do it. You know what I'm saying? Not a ton of false finishes for the first 75, 80% of this match. The quality and the drama is generated from other things, which is why it's so good. Which is why I think these matches are held in such high regard. Is basically what I'm saying here. Joe, Punk hits a Frankensteiner, hops up, hits Joe with the Pepsi twist, goes for the pin, but Joe gets the rope. So Samoa Joe, dominant champion, can't even kick out. He has to use the ropes to escape the pin. Both guys make their way to their feet. Joe goes for a lariat on the Punk. Punk counters it into a crucifix pin. Joe kicks out and then decapitates Punk with a lariat. 50 minutes in, they are still throwing these strikes as hard as they are and still bumping as hard as they are. Beautiful stuff. I mean, Punk does like a backflip, lands on his head. Again, burst of energy, double down. They're both selling on the mat. They're both just every fiber in their being is utilized to just stand up. Once they do, Punk hits Joe with a Shining Wizard. 1, 2, kick out. Man, the crowd bit on that one because that's pretty much Punk's finish at this point. Very, very close kick out. Drama is off the charts. Joe hits Punk with a knee bomb. It's like he's facing Punk, picks him up, ties Punk's knees underneath of him, and then drops him knee first. It's a slam onto Punk's knees, basically. Locks in a single leg crab. At this point, I'm like, Punk might even tap. I wasn't sure if this was a draw. I'm pretty sure the second match is a draw. But I was watching this. I was like, I'm not sure if this is a draw or if Joe just outright wins this one. So when Joe had this single leg crab following that knee buster, I was like, this gotta be it, right? But it was not. Punk gets to the ropes, breaks it. Joe, he's like, all right, this kid's not staying down. I'm going to put him on the top rope, hit him with the top rope muscle buster because that puts out everybody. But Punk does not want to feel this. So he counters, goes for a Pepsi plunge off the top rope. Nope. Joe counters. Superplex? Nope. Punk back, tries the Pepsi plunge again, hits it. Top rope pedigree onto Samoa Joe, but the previous work on Punk's knee causes him to escape to the outside after hitting this move because he's in so much pain and cannot capitalize on this super finisher. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful psychology. Punk can't capitalize on his finish, but he eventually gets back into the ring, hits Joe with another Shining Wizard, a brain buster, but he can't capitalize. These guys are hitting their big moves now, but they can't capitalize because they're so drained. Joe comes back with a desperation dragon screw onto the already injured leg of CM Punk. And then we get the announcement that there's 2 minutes left in this match. They're fighting on the top rope. Joe hits Punk with a top rope slam of some sort. 1 minute left. They get to their feet. Strike battle. Punch, 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 kicks, elbows, kicks, back and forth. Punk hits Joe with a DDT, but can't make the pin. Crawls over to him. Samoa Joe. Punk pins him. 1, 2, kick out. Ding, ding, ding. Time expires. Whoo! Just recapping this match has got me all sweaty and engorged in the swimsuit region. Phenomenal stuff. I can't say anything more about it. It's just, go watch it if you haven't. It's not an indie match. It's not a modern day PWG, whatever the fuck, risk control, forearm trading in the middle of the ring, finisher, kick out. It is a perfect example of what wrestling is supposed to be. And I don't even think this is the best match of their series. I'm going to be watching them eventually, but I've always heard this is like number 3 out of the 3 of them. So, very excited to see the next 2, but Joe retains via draw. But that's not even the end of this. Match is over. Crowd chants 5 more minutes. As they're chanting, Samoa Joe gets to his feet. And then Homicide storms the ring. Now, Homicide and Samoa Joe have had a brutal rivalry for like over a year at this point. Homicide hit Samoa Joe with a fireball. Then they had a rematch a few weeks later, which Joe beat Homicide, which sent Homicide into a rage. He tried to just murder everybody in the tent that he was in. It was a whole thing. But Homicide's basically psychotic at this point. A demon, as commentary puts it. Hits Samoa Joe in the head with a chair. Homicide knocks out the ref. Knocks out the interviewer, Dave Prazak. Homicide grabs a mic and he says, "This shit is not over, Joe." And then Homicide takes this new Ring of Honor championship and runs away with it. He steals the title. Not both of them, just one of them. I guess in theory, the new one is more expensive. I don't know. Huge heat for Homicide, which again is more representative of how much this crowd loved Samoa Joe versus CM Punk. The fact that Homicide comes in here and ruins the celebration post-match deal, crowd was not having it. So great build for heel Homicide here. Also puts it up in the air, like who's gonna challenge Joe next? Is it gonna be Homicide? Are we gonna see the rematch with Punk? Is it gonna be somebody else entirely? Like, a lot is up in the air here. A lot of intrigue is created as a result of that match, that angle, all of it. So all this whole package was just a great package, and I love me a good package. So Samoa Joe was laid out. Crowd's still chanting 5 more minutes. They don't care. Fuck you, Samoa Joe. Get off. Who cares? Homicide hit you with a chair. Whatever. 5 more minutes. Give it to us. We're bloodthirsty. They do not get the 5 more minutes. Not yet. Punk grabs the mic. At this point, Homicide's gone. Samoa Joe's starting to come to again. Punk grabs the mic and he says, Homicide, he's pissed me off. He's pissed these fans off. He thinks that it took away from the match. But then Punk goes on to say that this belt is the greatest belt in North America. He hands, but the belt that he's holding is the original Ring of Honor title, by the way. And he hands this belt to Joe. Hugs Joe. They shake hands and hug and kiss. Punk's basically, he says a lot of things, but he's basically establishing that the Ring of Honor championship is the greatest prize in wrestling, which is like kind of what everybody should be seeking to do, right? Is to put over your main belt, your main championship. And if nothing else, that's what this match did. This match, I think if there's one takeaway from this legendary match, it's that it solidified the Ring of Honor World title as a top title in the industry. Great stuff. And that's what Punk is trying to get over here. And he says, fuck anybody that's trying to stop us, which I guess is referring to, Ring of Honor being in dire straits with the change in management and all the other allegations and whatnot. But new era of Ring of Honor, and I think this match was one that skyrocketed them into this new era. So, and it set up the rematch perfectly because Joe was not able to beat Punk, and Punk arguably had Joe beat with that Pepsi plunge, but he just was unable to capitalize because he bounced outside of the ring afterwards. So there's like this sense of doubt in both guys. Like there wasn't obviously a definitive finish. So there's obviously going to be a rematch at some point, which makes the fact that they didn't bust out all their big moves even that more impactful, because now they have stuff to do in the second match that they did not do in the first match, which again is probably why this trilogy is so heralded, is because each match had it built off the other one. They didn't just blow their load in the first match and just do it. Match number 2 is the same thing, but with barbed wire and tables, whatever the fuck. No, they use their wrestling ability to build on each match, which is why it's so great. So, well, that was a lot. I talked a lot about this match. Holy shit. Hopefully I'm not rambling. I just love me some Joey Samoa and CM Phil. It's really all it is. And you know what the funny thing about that match is, actually? It wasn't the main event. 60 minutes for the world title was not the main event, which is just wild. You know what's even more wild than that is that the following match is called Ultimate Endurance. Well, what the fuck did we just watch? How is the following match going to be more a representation of endurance than that world title match was? This is poor planning here. Maybe they didn't foresee that world title match being as good as it was, but yes, Ultimate Endurance. The Ultimate Endurance. What's Ultimate Endurance? Hardest part of the ring? Well, I'll tell you. Why don't you just quit interrupting me and I'll tell you. It is a fucking match, dude. Why does everything in Ring of Honor have to be so contrived, so unnecessarily detailed and convoluted? I'll tell you what Ultimate Endurance is, guys. Don't worry, I'm gonna tell you. It is a tag team match. It's a tag team elimination match. We got the Briscoes versus the Prophecy, team of BJ Whitmer and Dan Moff, versus Generation Next, represented by Austin Aries and Jack Evans, versus the Second City Saints, Ace Steel and Colt Cabana. It's not a title match. I don't know what it is, actually. It's not a title match. It's just, which makes the fact that it main evented over Punk and Joe even that more questionable. I guess it's theoretically a big moment from a story perspective, and it kind of causes a major story pivot at the end, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's just a weird move. But so it's an elimination match. So every team starts. So it's not like a gauntlet or whatever the hell. Every team starts in the ring. The first fall is submissions only. So you can only win by submission in the first fall. Once one team is eliminated, the second fall, now the match is a scramble. So I guess there's no tags. It's basically the deal, which is kind of what this whole match is. But and then the final fall is anything goes. So it's like a 3 stages of hell type of deal. It's just hats on hats on hats on hats. Just make it an elimination scramble. Holy shit. That's what this match is. Why is there a submission match? Why is the first fall a submission match? It's like if you put universe mode on WWE 2K on randomize, and this is what it spit out. It's so unnecessary. It's also interesting because Gabe on commentary has always shit on the concept of elimination matches. He always says the same thing. It's always yeah, no, it's not going to be one of those matches where, you go for a pin and you don't break it up because it's oh, well, next time I'll just get the next guy. It's whatever. No, it's one fall to a finish. All these scramble matches, it's always one fall to a finish. And now we have an elimination match all of a sudden. And now all of a sudden Gabe Sapolsky fucking loves it. But the story of this match, above all else, got a lot of good teams in here, but the story really revolves around the Prophecy, which is the team of BJ Whitmer and Dan Moff. Now, the leader of the Prophecy, Christopher Daniels, has not been seen in quite a while. He was taken out by the Second City Saints a few months ago. Pepsi plunge off the top rope through a table. I still think they could have done something better. Whatever. But Daniels is still not here. By the way, I thought for sure, like, okay, this is the main event. The only thing that could justify it is like a major return or something. So I was thinking maybe Christopher Daniels comes back here. Who knows? But I guess that's not the case. Now that I'm thinking about it, now I literally, as I'm talking, I guess it's probably tied to the whole TNA ROH relationship, right? Is Daniels a TNA guy that's not allowed to compete for it? I'll have to do more research on that later. But so Daniels isn't here, basically. And that actually, not me saying that, actually makes what happens at the end make a lot more sense. We'll get to that. Match gets underway. Actually, before I should say, Prophecy, they have a promo before the match, like backstage, where Moff basically says if they lose this match, they're done. No longer a faction. So it's all or nothing for BJ and Moff here. Match gets underway. Everybody's, there's two guys in a ring at once, and everybody's just trying various submissions. Because remember, the first fall is submission only. So even guys that don't normally do submissions or lock it in, they're just grabbing limbs and bending them to try to do something. But eventually, BJ Whitmer submits Jack Evans with a lion tamer. Brutal looking. Jack Evans can bend. That guy, he was bent like a pretzel. By the way, we may or may not touch on it, but Jack Evans was in an angle earlier in the show where he was power bombed over the top rope right onto the floor. So I guess in theory, the story here is he's still injured from that. So this lion tamer was able to submit him fairly easily. But Generation Next is eliminated. So now we're on to the second fall. Now it's a scramble match. But there's still guys standing out in the apron. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Now it's a scramble match. And the pace picks up here. We got Ace Steel throwing out a suicide dive. Colt Cabana does like a Dragon Rana in the ring. BJ's in there with rolling German suplexes onto one of the Briscoes. The other Briscoe comes in with a sunset flip that he like sunset flips BJ, which causes BJ to suplex another guy. And then just a bunch of spots like that. A lot of explosive spots here. Dives, suplexes, stiff kicks. Get the old waterfall scenario where everybody's doing their big moves one after the other. Eventually, though, the Prophecy eliminates Mark Briscoe with a Doomsday Device Shining Wizard. So it's a Doomsday Device, but with BJ doing a Shining Wizard instead of a lariat. It looked really good. And that gets the win. So Briscoes have been eliminated. So now we're just down to the Prophecy and the Second City Saints, which has been a feud that's been going on for quite a while now. And it's pretty poetic because the Prophecy is still trying to get revenge on the Saints for taking out their leader. So now it's a street fight, which I believe we saw this in the last show. A street fight between these two teams. But this was pretty good stuff. Good street fight feel to this. By the way, but when it's down to two teams, Colt Cabana grabs the mic and he's like, last time we were in this town, we made you guys orphans. Which is what they were in Dayton when they took out Christopher Daniels. So that happens. Prophecy takes him out, beats the shit out of him, and Moff grabs the mic and he's like, you were saying, bitch? Which is very funny. So again, street fight, a lot of crowd fighting, a lot of fighting ringside. Ace Steel levels BJ Whitmer with a chair, busts him open. Ace Steel, he shit cans Allison Danger into the barricade, which is very funny. Dan Moff with a bell shot. It's a Colt Cabana. Colt comes back and rams Moff's head into a wedged chair and between the bottom rope and the ring post. Back in the ring, Second City Saints are dominating, beating down the Prophecy. Both Prophecy guys have been busted open. Moff, BJ, they hulk up. They make their comeback. They're chopping the shit out of each other. They chop each other to like fire each other up, and then they take it out on the Saints. Back into the crowd. This fucking crowd fighting, man. I can't do it. At one point, Ace Steel just pile drives Colt Cabana right on the concrete floor, which is gnarly. In the ring, Ace Steel hits Dan Moff with a tiger suplex or a tiger powerbomb. BJ hits a brain buster to Ace Steel. Colt Cabana with a moonsault onto BJ Whitmer. The Prophecy hits a German suplex lariat combination on the Colt Cabana. Ace Steel has to break up the pin. It's a pretty good energy to this. Pretty good stuff here. I almost forgot that there were 2 other teams in this match, which makes me wonder why they were even included at all. But in the ring. So now we get to the finish. So remember, Christopher Daniels was taken out via a Pepsi plunge off the top rope through a table. So the Second City Saints grab a table. Their trademark, I guess, at this point. They set up the table in the ring. They lay BJ Whitmer on this table. Ace Steel goes to the top rope. Colt Cabana takes Dan Moff over to him. I guess to theoretically powerbomb Dan Moff off the table through BJ Whitmer. I don't know what the plan was here, but Dan Moff fights out, slams Colt Cabana into Ace, which crotches Ace Steel on the top rope. BJ Whitmer off the table, goes to the top rope, hits a wrist clutch exploder suplex onto Ace Steel off the top rope through a table. And then these shards of table are on the mat. Dan Moff takes Colt Cabana and hits the most gruesome looking burning hammer onto these remains of the table. The most brutal looking burning hammer I've ever seen. And I guess the angle here, the what they're trying to get over is that he's trying to take Colt Cabana out. They're trying to take Ace Steel out. So they hit Ace with this brutal top rope move that, in my mind, at least is equivalent to a Pepsi plunge off the top. And then Dan Moff just kills Colt with this burning hammer, and that gets the 1, 2, 3. I mean, jeez Louise. I don't know how Colt didn't break his fucking neck here. Outrageous stuff. But the Prophecy, BJ, Whitmer, Dan Moff, get the win, and I suppose get their revenge on the Second City Saints. And the fact that this followed up Samoa Joe and CM Punk, the fact that they were able to have the quality of match that they did, the crowd was still into it. So props to them. It was a tough spot to be put in, but I think it pretty much delivered. I mean, obviously it's not as good as the Joe and Punk match, in my opinion, at least. But had a good story to it, good finish. Satisfying finish for the story at hand. And well, I say finish, but that's not really the finish. It's the finish of the match. But afterwards, there's a little post-match interview backstage. Or promo, whatever the hell. From the Prophecy. So we got Allison Danger, Dan Moff, BJ Whitmer. They're all excited about their win. Of course they are. But Dan Moff stops BJ in his tracks. He says, hey, that was great. Glad we did it. But this night signifies the night that the Prophecy died. It's very confusing because they're the Prophecy. So is he killing them out? Prophecy's dead, apparently. Why is it dead? Dan basically says that we don't have to fight against the Code of Honor anymore. Because this was all started by Christopher Daniels. Ultimately, Daniels recruited these guys. Dan Moff suggests that they don't need a leader anymore. They don't need a woman at ringside. They don't need to do this Prophecy thing anymore. Moff says that their debt is paid to Daniels in full. He says that now it's time for you and me to make noise of our own. We don't need the Prophecy name to do that. And he wants Dan Moff and BJ Whitmer to go down as the best tag team in Ring of Honor history. And Dan Moff says, I got my word and I got my balls. And I don't break them for nobody. Oh, this guy's a treat. This guy is a treat. BJ's like, oh, hell yeah, brother. BJ's a fucking idiot. He's down for anything. They shake hands and they leave Allison Danger in the dust. By the way, throughout this whole promo, Allison's in the center like, what? She's obviously not happy with this. So, and the last words you hear on this show is Allison Danger saying, The prophecy will never die. It's a little campy here at the end, but I guess Dan Moff, BJ have separated from Daniels now. So is this going to affect, like, is Daniels going to come back and fight Moff and BJ? I don't know. Causes a lot of intrigue. Or are they just banking on the fact that Daniels is not going to come back due to the whole separation? Don't know. Don't know where we're at here, but that's where we are at with the prophecy. A little bit of intrigue there, so I don't hate it. Wasn't expecting it, so some pretty good stuff. What else? What else is there to talk about? Hey, let's talk about Generation Next. Let's get a little recap. Let's get a little update on the old Gen Next faction. Of course, the newly dubbed faction of Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, Jack Evans, and Roddy Strong. So we talked a lot about them in the last episode. We'll just touch on them here. Just give them a little brush on the pecker right here. So night one, and this will pretty much wrap up night one. So there was a 6-man tag match. It was, I guess it was supposed to be just Alex Shelley versus Matt Stryker, who are in the middle of a best-of-3 series. But Generation Next boys gang up on Stryker. They beat the hell out of him in the middle of the ring. Prompts John Walters and Jimmy Rave to make the save. And I brought this up earlier talking about Jack Evans. John Walters power bombs Jack Evans over the top rope to the hardwood floor. I think somebody was supposed to be there to catch him, but he just splat. Brutal stuff. And by the way, Stryker got busted open from a chain shot from Alex Shelley, which I guess is he's starting to establish that as his hallmark. Alex Shelley has like a chain necklace and he wraps it around his fist and he punches Stryker with it, busts him open. Lots of blood. With Jack Evans out of commission and with Matt Stryker being helped to the back, John Walters makes a challenge to the remaining 3 guys of Generation Next to face Walters and Jimmy Rave in a 3-on-2 handicap match. Match gets underway. Matt Stryker comes back. He fights his way to the ring, clears house. So now we got a 6-man tag. Jimmy Rave, John Walters, and Matt Stryker versus Generation Next, the team of Alex Shelley, Austin Aries, and Roderick Strong. By the way, shout out to old Alex Shelley, current WWE Tag Team Champion. Wild how things shake out, huh? But, yeah, and another story beat here is that Jimmy Rave has lost virtually every match he's had. He's on the bubble at this point. So basically, he's in a position where if he loses another match, he's basically out of Ring of Honor. So we got that in the background. Match gets underway. Pretty good match. Lots of fun double teams, especially from Generation Next. They hit this like triple team powerbomb backbreaker neckbreaker. Like I think it's what Alex Shelley has Jimmy Rave up. Austin Aries grabs Rave's head for a neck breaker, and Roddy comes in there with a backbreaker. I don't know, it's crazy. Lots of fun double teams in this match. Lots of tight submissions as well. Double package into double stomp, then upside down drop. What the hell? Oh, I'm gonna read my note here. Double package into double stomp, then upside down drop kick. Oh, they like hold somebody upside down, like on their head, and then the other guy comes in with a drop kick. Fun stuff. Unique offense here. I will say, major pet peeve alert here. So Matt Stryker at some point makes the tag, but the ref doesn't see the tag. So he orders Matt Stryker to go back onto the apron because if he can't see it, he can't call it. But behind the ref, as the ref is telling Matt Stryker to get back in his corner, behind the ref, out of this point of view, Austin Aries makes the tag noise and gets in the ring. He makes an audio-only tag. The ref doesn't see that tag, but he allows it. But he didn't allow Matt Stryker to make the tag because he did. It's so stupid. It happens a lot in TNA. The TNA I'm watching, there's a lot of that too. It's happened for years and years and years, and it's always just stuck in my craw. It's so stupid. So stupid. Eventually, Matt Stryker makes the hot tag. Germans for everybody, throwing everybody all over the place. Jimmy Rave locks in a crossface on the Roderick Strong. Austin Aries breaks this up with a 450 on the Jimmy Rave and then locks in a Rings of Saturn onto Rave, and Jimmy Rave taps out. So Generation Next keeps their momentum going with another win, and Jimmy Rave may or may not be done with Ring of Honor. Who knows? Very pivotal loss for Rave. How will he come back? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. So lots of good stories going there. So, and a pretty good match as well. So just want to shout out those guys real quick. What else is there to talk about, gang? What else is there to talk about? You know what match really surprised me, actually, on this show? And I know we already talked about him a lot on this episode, but we got to talk about him again. CM Punk versus Hydro, aka Jay Lethal. Punk versus Lethal on night 2 was sensational. I mean, Punk busting out 2 great matches in this month. I mean, he's just... I might be going out on a limb here. but CM Punk is a pretty good pro wrestler, I would say. That's just me, though. That's just me. Why are Punk and Jay Lethal fighting? Hardest part of the ring, well, let me tell you. So on night 2, there is a Ring of Honor tag team title scramble match. Of course, the champions, CM Punk and Colt Cabana, defending against the Outcast Killers versus the Ring Crew Express versus Special K, team of Dixie and Hydro. Yeah, those 3 teams. So CM Punk, who was on the heels of one of the greatest world title matches of all time, huge match against Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe was unable to beat him, as hot as ever. And now Punk is defending his tag team titles against 3 jobber tag teams. I saw this on paper. I was like, what the fuck? Why is this match happening? So all these teams come out. Punk and Cabana come out last. Punk grabs the mic and he's like, you know, if that ref didn't have the referee shirt, I wouldn't be able to tell who's the ref and who's the wrestlers. Which is like, you look at these guys and there are a bunch of jamokes in that ring outside of Jay Lethal. Punk says, you know what, Colt? I got it. Because Colt Cabana is in the survival of the fittest match, which we'll touch on later, but Punk's like, you got a match later to get ready for. I got it. Don't worry. Don't break a sweat. I'll beat these 3 teams myself. Just like, Jesus. Which I thought was a very silly proposition from Punk at first. But commentary lets us know that you apparently have to pin the champions to win the titles. So in that way, it's almost more of an advantage because now there's one less guy to pin, one less way to lose the title. So as long as Punk doesn't get pinned, he walks out with the tag team titles. But everybody's trying to pin Punk. There's one point in the match where somebody's pinning Punk and then he kicks out and then somebody else gets on him and then he kicks out. But like 7 times in a row, it's like 1 kick out, 1 kick out, but it's like a different guy every time, which is pretty funny. To see all these jobbers go just show out with Punk on the apron, just like, yeah, you got him, buddy. Like he's egging him on. He just wants the match to be over. Like I said, he doesn't care about winning the match. He just doesn't want to get pinned. I will say in this match, I mean, Hydro, Jay Lethal, by far the standout here. Huge Hydro chants from the crowd. Super over, this Jay Lethal is. It's a chaotic scramble match. It's the wacky double teams and swinging bombs and whatever the fuck, right? Punk is on the apron as all these guys are just busting their ass. He's not getting involved at all until he just randomly decides to do a springboard drop kick onto somebody and then gets back out to the apron. At some point, Hydro hits Dunn and Marcos, the Ring Crew Express. He hits both of them with a double dragon suplex. Punk gets in the ring, tosses Hydro out of the ring, and pins both Dunn and Marcos and gets the 1, 2, 3. What an asshole. Did nothing in this match. Was just laughing at these jobbers and ends up getting the win anyways. Gotta love it. You love to see it. Punk shakes the hands of all the lifeless bodies on the mat. He leaves, but before he leaves, he gets on the mic and he calls out, or he cuts a little promo on Ricky Steamboat, I guess on July 7th. On July 17th, they're going to have a match. And he says that he expects the same lackluster performance from Steamboat that he got tonight. Just burying all these teams. He shits on the crowd as well because, and I might include it here as well because, so Punk comes out to AFI, which is the music he came out to. If you're not familiar with old school CM Punk, he came out to this song against MJF in their dog collar match in AEW. Misiri Kentari, I think that's what it's called. But the beginning of the match is like, and the crowd is just horrendously offbeat. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Awful performance from the crowd. But so Punk gets the shitty win in the scramble match from the work that Hydro did to Dunn and Marcos. So Punk cuts this promo. He gets out of there. Lethal gets in the ring, grabs the mic. Maybe his first promo ever in Ring of Honor. Hydro grabs the mic and he's like, "Hey, Punk, you want some competition? Why don't you try me?" And the crowd goes apeshit. The crowd is super into Jay Lethal here. Punk like saunters back to the ring and he slaps the mat and he's like, "Maybe next time, kid." And then Punk starts to leave and then Hydro gets back on the mic and he's like, "What are you, a pussy?" Which, I don't know, man. It prompts some CM pussy chants, which is fun. But CM Punk's like, "Oh, you think, yeah, I am what I eat. Yeah." That's not what he says. But Punk's like, "All right, well, I guess we'll have a match because I am not a pussy," is what Phil Brooks says. I'm watching this. It's like how Punk is just like being so diminutive towards Hydro. Meanwhile, modern times, Hydro is the most tenured Ring of Honor champion of all time. Most amount of days as Ring of Honor champion. Arguably the greatest Ring of Honor wrestler of all time. And here he's just some guy in a wife beater and jeans. Part of this faction. Crowd knew he had talent, though. The crowd knew he had talent. But that kicks off a match here. CM Punk versus Hydro. The story here of this match is Punk, because at this point, Punk is just levels above Hydro. Punk wants to show off. You know, he had that 60-minute barn burner a few weeks before this. But now he's just here to show off. He wants to win in spectacular fashion. He doesn't want to eke out a win. He wants a Pepsi plunge. He wants a shining wizard, something, right? So Punk's beating down Hydro for a big chunk of this match. Hydro has a little bit of fire in the beginning, but Punk cuts him off pretty easy. Just a big, long, drawn-out, cocky beatdown from CM Punk. Punk goes for the Pepsi plunge, but it gets countered into a superplex from Hydro. Hydro finally has the momentum, and he's going for the Dragon Suplex, which I guess is his finish at this point. That's what ended the last match. But Punk has this scouted, and Lethal he keeps going for this Dragon Suplex. He goes for it, gets countered. He goes for it again, he gets it off, but Punk lands on his feet. But Punk lands on his feet and retorts with a Shining Wizard, goes for the pin, 1, 2, picks him up. Punk had him beat, but he picks up his shoulders because he wanted to win in more spectacular fashion, or just wanted to, I don't know, just be a dick about it. Who knows? But Hydro is able to fight back. It's a Lethal combination-esque type of move, except it was like a backbreaker into a T-bone suplex. Some really fun, close call roll-ups here towards the end, like small package countered into another small package, into a roll, and then they're like the leverage is going back and forth. It's really close. 2 counts back and forth. Really good energy and drama here towards the ending stretch. Punk hits a hammerlock DDT on the Hydro. 1, 2, picks him up again. This CM Punk is a cocky piece of shit. He, like I said, he wants to show out. Punk puts Hydro on the top rope. Punk goes for a Frankensteiner, hits it, but Hydro rolls through into a roll up. 1, 2, kick out. Almost had him there. Goes for the dragon suplex for like a 4th or 5th time. Finally hits it, but he's so beat down that he can't capitalize. He finally makes the pin on a delay and only gets a 2 count. So Punk is on the back step, which causes Punk to just roll up Jay Lethal and get the quick win out of nowhere. So Hydro had a really good showing. Crowd really wanted Jay Lethal to win here. Awesome match. The cutoffs, it's like Punk, obviously he's on a higher level than Lethal at this point. But when Lethal got his offense in, the crowd was like, fuck yeah, Hydro, get him, kill him, beat him, and then Punk would cut him off. And it's like those cutoffs were just felt so vehemently in my cockles, right? They were just so effective. Crowd hated Punk. Crowd loved Lethal. And Punk seemingly underestimated Hydro because he wanted to win in the way he wanted to win, but ultimately wasn't able to. So he had to settle for just a fluky little roll up to eke out a win. So Punk wins, but Hydro, Jay Lethal looked fucking great, and only upwards and onwards for Mr. Hydro here. So we'll see. He's still in Special K, but I feel like it's only a matter of time before he busts out on his own. So good stuff there. Good stuff. Another great match from CM Punk, which, I mean, this guy is just... I oftentimes want to hate CM Punk, but watching this era of Punk, you just get a new appreciation for him. He's just so good. He's still so good. Well, who am I kidding? But that brings us to the finale of this episode. Let's talk about survival of the fittest, shall we?
Is, I guess, a new concept here, which it's a new concept here, but I believe Ring of Honor just did this like a few months ago to crown a TV champion, I believe. Because believe it or not, Ring of Honor still exists, as much as they want you to forget that. But it's a 6-man elimination match. Here, the stakes aren't necessarily clearly defined, but this is right as they announced the Contenders ring. So theoretically, this is like kind of a number 1 Contenders match. Not really. I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. But the stakes are silly. It's similar to the Field of Honor. Like, they have all these goofy tournaments and match stipulations with no stakes associated to it. And it drives me crazy a little bit. But I think they accomplished a lot with it. So I'm going to let this one slide. And I'll explain why here in a second. But on the way to this Ultimate Survival match, because it is the main event of night 2, hence why the show is called Survival of the Fittest. So there are 6 qualifier matches, I guess, on this show leading up to that main event. So we'll briefly, kind of just rapid fire talk about these qualifier matches, and then we'll dig deep into that 6-man because there's a lot of fun stuff happening. There's a lot of fun stuff happening actually on the way there, because the first qualifier is Mark Briscoe versus Alex Shelley, which on paper looks pretty solid, and in actuality, it's pretty damn solid as well. You got Alex Shelley attacking the neck of Mark Briscoe, Mark attacking the leg of Alex Shelley. Mark is doing this with dragon screws and the ropes and springboard drop kicks, but instead of just a traditional springboard to the chest or to the face, he pinpoints it right to the knee of Alex Shelley, which is just so good. Ultimately, Alex Shelley gets Mark Briscoe into the Border City stretch, but Mark counters this seamlessly into a Texas Cloverleaf, or at least tries to. And as Alex Shelley's trying to fight off this Cloverleaf, Mark has his legs, all like tied up into a Cloverleaf position. But instead of actually turning him over into the Cloverleaf, he just flips over into a jackknife pin with Shelley's legs all tied up. And Mark gets the win that way. So really just smart finish. Shelley's legs had been worked on the entire match. And while Briscoe couldn't get this submission in, He already had his legs in a vulnerable position and was able to get a cheeky pin out of nowhere. So really good stuff. Nothing like barn burning in that opening match right there, but just good stuff. Good old fashioned wrestling. So Mark Briscoe moves on to Survival of the Fittest. The next qualifier is Trent Acid versus Colt Cabana. Very, very banter heavy match this is. If you know Colt Cabana and Trent Acid, you kind of know what this is going to be. So the real story of this match is Jimmy Bauer on commentary is he's hyping up this new finishing move that Colt Cabana says he's going to unveil in this match. Apparently Bauer and Colts had a conversation leading up to this, and Colt was like, I got a new finisher. It's devastating. Nobody kicks out of it. And I'm going to debut it for the public right here in this match against Trent Acid. So during the entire match, commentary is like, man, I wonder if it's going to be like a top rope move or it's got to be some sort of devastating pile driver. It's going to like break the guy's neck or drop him on his head, or it's just going to be so devastating. I can't wait to see it. They're like building it up during this entire match. And what the move ends up being is it called the Paredes Special? They said it on commentary. It was basically so Colt hits Trent Acid with a snapmare, but Colt flips forward with him, but then Colt rolls backwards and cradles Trent's leg for a pin. So it's just like a shitty little roll up. Not a shitty roll up, but it's just so funny how much they built this up. Like it was going to be like a career ending move, and it's just like a roll up, but I liked it. Looked pretty good. Looked pretty snug. So Colt wins with the Paredes Special, or whatever it's called, and he moves on to Survival of the Fittest. Next one is John Walters versus Austin Aries. So John Walters comes out. Austin Aries comes out flanked by his Generation Next faction mates. Alex Shelley grabs the mic and he's like, hey, John, we took your spot last month in your match and we're going to do it again. So John Walters sees this and he's like, well, I think I could take all four of these guys. So he tries to attack them, but the numbers game just overcomes them. Generation Next gangs up on John Walters. Alex Shelley, once again, with this, I guess, newly patented chain shot to the head of John Walters. Like I mentioned earlier, Alex Shelley has like a chain necklace and he wraps it around his fist, punches John Walters in the face with it. Walters is bleeding all over the place. He even rolls out to the floor, which by the way, it's like a carpeted floor around the ring. No, there's blood all in the carpet. Like, it seems like a dick move, but it is what it is. So Generation Next, I mean, they're running roughshod around this show. So who does it take to stop this anarchy? Well, none other than Gary Michael Capetta. GMC comes out, the, I guess, whatever, general manager of Ring of Honor, whatever the title is. GMC is like, you think that's all it's going to take? You think you're just going to beat this guy up and move on to Survival of the Fittest? No, sir. I guess Ring of Honor had a plan B plan. So I guess they anticipated this beatdown, which wouldn't you put measures in to make the beatdown, to assure that the beatdown didn't happen? Maybe extra security, maybe just people watching the aisleway. I don't know. I feel like there was better ways to handle this, but GMC is like, all right, Walters is out. Let's bring out Josh Daniels. Basically the same guy. Long, tight, short hair, kind of muscular. Josh Daniels comes out with Prince Nana because Josh Daniels is a member of the embassy at this point. But Josh Daniels tells Nana to stay in the back. I don't need you. Which feels like a very stupid move given that we just saw a 4-on-1 beatdown. Wouldn't you want all the numbers that you could? I don't know. But anyways, Josh Daniels gets in the ring. And it's at this point where why does everybody in 2004 want to be Chris Benoit? I mean, Jesus Christ. The long tights, the shitty little boots, the short hair, the vaguely muscular upper body with the not that muscular lower body. Like, everybody looks the same, and it is hilarious. Fucking Roderick Strong's out there. John Walters is out there. Josh Daniels. I mean, you could barely tell who was who at this point. But Josh Daniels gets in there. Generation Next is still in the ring. And they're like, hey, you kind of look like us already. You might as well join our faction. You already got the matching tights. I mean, you're already ready. Join us. Josh Daniels. But apparently this is all a hoax, and Alex Shelley slaps Daniels. And another 4-on-1 beatdown. Who would have thought? Who would have fucking thought? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result or whatever the hell. GMC needs to control a show. Like, what the hell? He's just letting another singles guy get in there with 4 other guys when you just saw a 4-on-1 beatdown? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Alex Shelley goes for a chain shot again. But Walters comes out to make the save. Him and Daniels run out Generation Next. And then Teddy Long comes out now. No, we got a tag team match on our hands, everybody. John Walters, Josh Daniels versus the team of Austin Aries and Roderick Strong. And so the original guys were Walters and Aries. So whichever team wins, that one singular guy will move on to Survival of the Fittest. This match is pretty solid. It's kind of whatever. It's Generation Next dominating the big chunk of the beginning, but the finishing stretch, you got Josh Daniels with a beautiful tiger suplex on the Austin Aries. You got Roddy in with a backbreaker to Josh Daniels. John Walters comes in, cross-arm backstabber to Roderick Strong. Goes for a second one, but Roddy counters it into a gut check on the Walters. Ultimately, the finish comes when Roderick Strong hits a powerbomb onto Josh Daniels, and then Aries comes off the top with a 450 splash onto Daniels for the win. So Austin Aries and Roderick Strong get the win, so Austin Aries moves on to Survival of the Fittest. Next qualifier is Jay Briscoe versus Homicide, which, who doggy? 2 MVPs of Ring of Honor at this point. Jay Briscoe, probably the MVP of 02. Homicide, probably the MVP of 03. And now we're here in 04. 2 day one guys. This is probably the singles match that I was looking forward to the most, which, by the way, I did appreciate. So, like, in the overall scope of these 2 shows, night 1 was very multi-man match heavy. Like, you had Joe and Punk, of course, but everything else was just like scrambles and multi-tag team match. Like, it was just a big clusterfuck of scrambles and mayhems, and so it was good to see just solid singles matches back to back to back here. It was a good change of pace. But we got Jay Briscoe versus Homicide here. Spoiler alert, another great match. So we got Homicide, who's fresh off of just ruining the moment of Punk and Joe a few weeks before this. Starting to finally catch some heel heat, this Homicide. Crowd is not into him. I mean, they are, but like, they're into the heel version of Homicide for sure. I will note that I didn't see the belt that Homicide stole from the last show. I don't know if he just threw it in the trash or if he pawned it off or what the deal is, but match gets underway. It's good stuff. There's a point where Homicide goes for the cop killer, like, out of nowhere. Like, he like seamlessly. So Jay Briscoe whips Homicide into the ropes. Jay does like a duck down for a back body drop. But Homicide runs up to him and just spins and locks it in and almost hits it out of nowhere, which was nuts. But Jay counters it. Thank goodness. Both guys battle with Yakuza kicks, big boots, back and forth. They eventually hit each other with one at the same time. We got a double down here. Jay Briscoe gets on the second rope. Julius Smokes, who's out there with Homicide, grabs Jay's foot to prevent him from jumping off. And this allows Homicide to take advantage with a top rope ace crusher. And then we get this fucking sick moment where Homicide, he hits this ace crusher, crowd's amped. Homicide gets up, rips his elbow pad off and like throws it behind him, but the elbow pad comes and hits the camera dead on. It's just an awesome visual. Rips off the elbow pad, crowd's into it, hits the ropes. Huge lariats, just kills, just absolutely annihilates. Jay Briscoe gets the win. Just an awesome finishing sequence there. Top rope ace, elbow pad to the camera, huge lariat. 1, 2, 3. It's good stuff. Great stuff there. Homicide gets the win, and he moves on to Survival of the Fittest. Next qualifier, we got Bryan Danielson versus Jack Evans. A hilarious matchup on paper, and it was just as fun to watch as you would think. Jack Evans obviously is like the scrawny fucking breakdancer member of Generation Next, does all the flips and flops and kind of wiggery. Like he's that guy. And then you got Bryan Danielson, who's just a straight up wrestler. Bald Bryan Danielson, by the way. I believe this is the debut of Bald Bryan, which I believe means he's done fucking around. He's still got the blue tights. Once we get bald maroon tights Bryan Danielson, that's when we're in business. We're not quite there yet, but at least he's bald. So we're getting there, slowly but surely. And apparently Bryan is fresh off of a performance in the Battle of the Super Juniors in Japan, which makes sense because Bryan hasn't really been around. He's been kind of touch and go with Ring of Honor over the past year or so. So hopefully now is the point where he becomes like a regular in Ring of Honor, because he's so goddamn fun to watch here, man. I mean, Jack Evans himself sees this matchup and he's like, maybe instead we have a dance-off. Bride guy, what do you think about that? So Jack Evans does his breakdancing, his windmills, his cartwheels, what have you. Danielson retorts with a, I don't know, what do you call this? Just the hip swivel? The Val Venus? Is that what that is? Getting a lot of bulge from Bryan Danielson here at the outset. But then the wrestling match breaks out at some point. I'll tell you what this match is. There's one spot in particular that I think it just represents what this match is. Jack Evans, he's making his comeback after Bryan Danielson is just torturing him with various submissions, turning this poor boy into a pretzel. Jack Evans fights back with some drop kicks and springboards and flips and flops. Jack Evans like hits the ropes, does a springboard backflip, and lands on his feet, hits the ropes, runs at Danielson, boom! European uppercut. Enough of that tomfoolery. It's all the fanciness. Like Evans is all about the fanciness and the flash, and Danielson just like, all right, enough of your tomfoolery. And the submission that Bryan Danielson wins this match with, because Bryan Danielson does win. Let's not kid ourselves. This submission, I don't know if it has a name. I don't even know if it's a real move. Let me try to paint a picture for you. My note says standing upside down Boston Crab. Let me let you chew on that for a second. A standing upside down Boston Crab. So how do I paint a picture with words here? Why don't I just show you? So I'll pull it up here and we'll walk through it. All right. Let me start at this European uppercut first of all, because I mean, look at this shit. Kicks off Evans. Beige! Whoo! All right. Now, Danielson's got him. Picks up Evans. Picks him up in like a bear hug position. Oh! Dude! I mean, hold on. Let me. He got into that faster than I remember. So he because by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. Bryan Danielson broke out a bear hug in this match earlier, which is just hilarious. Just going full Bruno Sammartino up in this bitch. Which is such a funny like juxtaposition with Ring of Honor and all like the innovative fancy moves. And he's just straight up bear hugging him. But now at this finish, so Danielson's got him. I'm gonna turn off the volume here. You can follow if you're watching on YouTube. He picks him up. Jesus, I mean, look at this. What? Danielson, how do I describe this? So Jack Evans' crotch is at Danielson's chest. Evans' feet are behind Danielson, behind his knees. And Evans' neck is bent like underneath. It is just, you have to see this if you haven't. I mean, good Lord. Good golly, Miss Molly. It really is kind of just a Boston Crab. I guess Danielson's just higher up on the back. I don't know. It's almost like a super lion tamer. Just gnarly stuff. Gnarly stuff. But a fun match overall. Bryan Danielson, Jack Evans. Just stupid fun. I think both of their strengths were highlighted in this one. And I wouldn't be mad if we got this again at some point. Good stuff. Good stuff. So Bryan Danielson moves on to Survival of the Fittest, and now we get our final qualifier match. Matt Stryker versus Samoa Joe, the Ring of Honor World Champion. It's a non-title match here, but these two had a match a couple months ago, I believe, and that was for the world title. And I talked about it at that point. It felt like Matt Stryker did not belong there. It felt like Joe just kind of dominated him. This match was a little closer to 50-50. Like Joe dominates in the beginning, but then Matt Stryker fights back. He hits a flying neck breaker off the top rope. Death Valley driver for a 2 count. Matt Stryker hits a superplex for a 2 count. But Samoa Joe puts a stop to this comeback with a spinning leg sweep to the just takes out his knees, hits a brutal looking island driver, and gets the win. So Samoa Joe beats Matt Stryker once again and moves on to the main event, because of course he does. But after that match, before we get to Survival of the Fittest, after Samoa Joe wins this match, CM Punk comes out, meets him in the aisleway. They get back in the ring. Punk grabs a mic and he says, "Hey, Joe, I didn't come to fight." And then, of course, he gets into their legendary match that they just had. Punk says that he sought to take him the distance because he knows that Joe never went past 30 minutes. So he wanted to take him the distance because he knew that was his best opportunity to win. Punk asks, when's the rematch coming? Because there was no decisive winner. When's the rematch, Joe? And then the lights go out. And then the lights come back on. And it's Sabu. No, it's Homicide, of course. In the crowd somewhere. He's like on a random cherry picker in the crowds. I don't know. But Homicide has the belt that he stole from Joe. So Joe meets him in the crowd. And they brawl. They brawl to the backstage area. They brawl into intermission. During intermission, we get a promo from Samoa Joe. Well, I guess it's right off the heels of the brawl. Joe says, "You know what? Let me just let this promo roll." Because Joey Samoa is an all-time great promo. And let's just hear the intensity off of this boy.
And rightfully so. What we just saw, I can't believe it. Joe, what do you have to say? Our champ.
GMC, what do I gotta say? What do I gotta say? I'll tell you what. You wanted this Homicide? You wanted to get under my skin? You wanted me? Well, you got it! You want this to be a war? You want this to be the end of war? You got an ultimatum, Homicide. I'm giving you till July. I'm giving you till July. You got until July to get ready. You got until July to be ready to get the job done, because I'm going to get the job done, Homicide. Do you understand me? Do you understand me? Look into these eyes. You couldn't accept defeat. I beat you. It was over. And you couldn't accept that because you're a punk. Homicide, the strong style thug. No, you're a thug. You're a punk. And that's all you've ever been. You can't get the job done. So now you're using any means necessary, hoping you get lucky. Homicide. In July, it's over. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's here in Ring of Honor. I don't care if it's in Chicago. I don't care if it's in Philly. I don't care if it's in your backyard in Bed-Stuy. Come July, Homicide, it ends. And I will still be your Ring of Honor World Champion. Get the camera out of my face.
Jeez Louise. I'd say Joe is a bit of a salty character, huh? Bit of a perturbed gentleman, this Samoa Joe, I would say. So I guess we're gonna see a rematch next month between Joe and Homicide, allegedly. I don't know where else they could take it. I mean, they've already had some brutal fucking matches. Pretty decisive matches. Like Joe's beat Homicide a few times in title matches. Homicide did get that one match in that unsanctioned match. I don't know, man. I'm curious to see where they could take it. I sense we'll get some sort of Rottweilers kind of pivot here, maybe a new member or some. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see. It's got my attention, that's for sure. I mean, Joe and Homicide, they always have great matches, so you're not going to hear any complaints from me. But yeah, that's where we're at. Keep tuned in for next month with more updates on that. But Jamoa So moves on to the survival of the fittest, and we are set. We have our field of 6 set up for the main event, the survival of the fittest match, which is a straight up elimination match. There's no 3 stages of hell, no submission is the first fall, scramble is like, no, it's just a straight up elimination match. 6 guys. And holy shit, what a lineup. What a lineup in this match. We got Mark Briscoe versus Colt Cabana versus Austin Aries versus Homicide versus Bryan Danielson versus Samoa Joe. Whew, you talk about an all-star game. You talk about some of the guys that have held this company. This company has seen a lot of... Not everything has been good in Ring of Honor up to this point. There's been a lot of silly shit. But you see the guys in this match, and this is like just this is just no bullshit, just the good stuff is what this match is. Really fun. I mean, this match was to the shock of no one. This match was great. It really. So there's a few stories here. I would say, as far as the match itself, it's really the final 2 that drive this home, that make it great. But we got some fun stories on the way there. So the match starts. Mark Briscoe jumps Homicide in the beginning because Homicide fought Jay Briscoe earlier, and Homicide damn near injured Jay with that lariat. Like, Jay had to get carted off by medical staff. So Mark and Homicide have beef. So they start hot right at the beginning. Everyone kind of gets their turns. Nobody wants to face Joe. Every time somebody gets in, when Joe's in the ring, they tag back out, including Homicide, which is curious because they were just they were brawling a few minutes ago, and now Homicide wants none of Joe. I noted that every time Austin Aries and Samoa Joe got in the ring, it was just beautiful. I mean, just awesome sequences from both these guys. I know what's to come at the end of the year, and just to see a first glimpse of Austin Aries and Samoa Joe was very fun to see. Austin Aries is probably the biggest story of this match, arguably. Because Austin, like a few months ago, Austin Aries was on the afternoon show, like not even like a real proper event. Just a new guy. There's a fresh face. And now Austin Aries is a part of Generation Next, a big faction. Now he's in a main event. He's tangling with the world champion and a bunch of other Ring of Honor stalwarts. The main takeaway from this match, I think, is that Austin Aries looked like a star and he felt like he belonged in this main event scene, which is an understatement given what's going to be happening at the end of the year. But Austin Aries looked fucking great in this one. But you know who else made an impact here? Was old Boom Boom Colt Cabana. This Colt, the match kind of breaks down at some point. People are doing dives to the outside. Colt is about to do an Asai moonsault to the outside, but sees Joe in the ring and decides to leap into the ring with a sunset flip. 1, 2, 3. Colt Cabana eliminates Samoa Joe. Colt Cabana pins the world champion, which I believe has not happened since Joe won the title like 16 months ago. Joe suffers his first pinfall loss in a year and a half, almost. Insane. And it's out of nowhere. Completely out of nowhere. Colt Cabana. I would assume we get a Colt Cabana Samoa Joe match at some point in the future. But my jaw dropped when I saw that. That was crazy. So Samoa Joe is the first guy eliminated, the world champion. Colt goes on. He has this crazy momentum now. He's laying out everybody. He hits this crazy Tower of London on the Homicide. Just cracks his jaw with a cutter. But then Homicide fights back, hits Colt Cabana with a huge lariat, and then Mark right off the top, right away, with a shooting star press onto Colt's cabana and gets the 1-2-3. So Colt is the second one eliminated. Got too excited over his pinfall over the world champion. Can't blame him though. So Colt's eliminated. Bryan Danielson gets in there, works the legs of Mark Briscoe with various submissions. I mean, of course, that's the Bryan Danielson way. So Briscoe's legs are shot. And eventually, Mark is in there with Homicide. Mark Briscoe hits Homicide with a German suplex with a bridge, or an attempted bridge. So what happens is that Mark Briscoe hits this German on Homicide, and both their shoulders are down. Ref counts to 3. Double pin. Double elimination. So both Homicide and Mark Briscoe get eliminated there because Mark's legs were worked on so much that he couldn't hold the bridge. So good psychology there. I like that. But obviously Homicide's not too happy with this. Him and Julius Smokes brawl with both of the Briscoes because Jay comes out to kind of even the odds here. So the Briscoes brawl with Homicide and Julius Smokes to the back. So now we are left with the final 2, which is really the main story of this match, honestly, other than Colt getting the win over Joe. Austin Aries versus Bryan Danielson. The finals. I like this a lot. Bryan Danielson, like I said, he's kind of been touch and go with Ring of Honor. He's spent a lot of time in Japan and Europe. But he's here. He's bald. So, like I said, I hope this is where Bryan Danielson just locks in with Ring of Honor. Day one guy, Bryan Danielson, facing off against Austin Aries, which talked earlier how Austin Aries is breaking out with this match. Their two styles just meshed so well. Really fun stuff. And I got to note, like, Bryan Danielson here, like, he stayed pretty consistent, like, in terms of his style and his look and all of that stuff. But watching, like, young Bryan, and I've brought this up before, he's, like, a little extra beefy early in his career. Like, he's like a powerhouse, which people don't really bring up. Like, he was, like, a jacked... He's very comparable in a way to, like, Taz. Like, not the tallest guy, but just so compact and powerful and explosive. Nowadays, Danielson, I mean, he's still like he's in shape, obviously, but he doesn't have like the pure muscle mass that he had back in this period. Just thick legs, just juicy ass. So Bryan Danielson's here, but I say that because the power aspect of his game is something that you find in like early 2000s Ring of Honor, where you don't really find it in modern day. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it's very interesting to see Bryan in this. Like he's again, the bear hug. He's utilizing the bear hug in this match to great effect, which again is just hilarious to see a guy who's so capable of so many different complex submissions. Just let me grab you and squeeze you, but he does it so well. This is not a fucking, WrestleMania 3 Andre the Giant bear hug. This is like, it feels like it would hurt. It feels like it would hurt. He's also doing like body slams, scoop slams. Scoop slam Bryan is here. Scoop slam Danielson's here. A body slam barrage of just one after the other. Just Googe picks him up. Googe picks him up. Googe. Just the simplicity of what Bryan was doing in this match with just an amped up intensity made it so... It was so interesting to watch, and I mean, I was into it. The crowd was into it. Just shows how good Danielson is, even at this point in his career. It was just fantastic stuff. And at this point, for context of the time, like I said, Aries is still relatively new to Ring of Honor. He's still very new to the audience, whereas Danielson's been here for over 2 years at this point. Like I said, he's right off of Battle of the Super Juniors in New Japan. He's wrestling in Europe. Like, Danielson's a pretty big name in the independent scene at this point, whereas Aries is still kind of up and coming at this point. So Danielson really dominates him for a lot of this match, with a lot of it, ground game, submissions. But Aries, turns the tide when they get to the outside, throws Danielson into the barricade. Aries busts out a Cactus Jack elbow off the apron to the floor. They get back into the ring. But Danielson fights back with a dragon suplex right into a cattle mutilation. Ugh. Sexy stuff. But as he gets into this cattle mutilation, Aries slips out right into a Rings of Saturn with a fish hook So, a rings of sad, you know what it is. You hook both the arms behind the guy and then you wrench back. But Aries does this, but he has his finger in Bryan's mouth. So he's like fish hooking him. So he's like wrenching the face, which is that legal? Feels like it wouldn't be. It feels like it'd be against the code of honor, but who am I to say? Danielson gets to the rope at some point, but Aries has control now. So he goes for the brainbuster, which is one of his finishing moves. He fights for it. He picks up Danielson. Danielson knees, as he's upside down, knees Aries in the head to stop it. Aries goes for it a second time. Again, more knees. So it's clear that Aries is not going to be able to hit this brainbuster. So what does Aries do? He hits the ropes, big running elbow, picks him up for a third try. He says, I'm going to get this fucking brainbuster. I'm going to do whatever it takes to hit it. Gets it on the third try, hits Danielson with it. 1, 2, kick out. Oh, it's just so good. The fact that Aries had to fight so hard for it, which lets the crowd know that this is a maneuver that is worth fighting for. It's worth doing whatever you got to do to hit it. So when he finally hit it, the crowd's like, oh shit, he hit the thing that he really wanted. This has got to be it. Then it wasn't. Oh, just so good. So good. Aries goes for the 450 splash right after this. But Bryan gets the knees up to block it. More body slams from Bryan. Goes for another body slam, but Aries counters into a small package. 1, 2, kick out. Oh! These near falls are fucking getting me, man. My nipples are turgid. My cock is wet. More body slams. Bear hug. Right into that submission that Bryan Danielson got Jack Evans to submit with earlier. This missionary Boston Crab, I think we could call it. Not sure. But he locks it in, and there's no escaping it. Austin Aries has to tap out. Again, just equally as brutal. I mean, pretty much as brutal as the one that he did on Evans. Jack Evans was able to bend a little more. This one felt like Aries wasn't supposed to bend that way. And it was more like just a lion tamer, but it looked really good still. And Bryan Danielson gets Austin Aries to tap out. So Bryan Danielson is the fittest, I guess. Is that what this was survival of the fittest? Bryan Danielson wins, so I guess he is the fittest. So good stuff here. Hopefully Bryan is here to stay. He had a promo earlier in the show, I should mention, and he reminds us that he's the last guy to beat Joe clean in a match. Granted, this is before Colt rolled him up in this match, but in a one-on-one match, Bryan Danielson is the last guy to beat Samoa Joe clean. So we are seemingly setting up for another rematch of Bryan Danielson versus Samoa Joe, which, I mean, serve that up to me and put it down my pants. I would love to see it. I'd like to see it. So Danielson wins. Danielson's a monster. He comes off just looking like an unstoppable force, honestly, from the show. But Austin Aries, arguably even more importantly, comes out looking like a star. Because coming into this, Austin Aries was kind of just like the fourth guy in Generation Next. But Aries, I mean, after this show, Austin Aries feels like the leader. He went from number 4 to number 1 in my eyes. So overall, just a very effective match. Survival of the Fittest. It's funny watching all these concepts. They're throwing like Survival of the Fittest, Ultimate Endurance, Field of Honor, the Scrambles, the Mayhem, the 6-man Mayhem, the 4 corners. Like there's certain concepts that still remain today, which let you know that it's like, oh, these were the good ones. Survival of the Fittest is still something that Ring of Honor does. So going into this, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be good. And it was, because it got Colt over by pinning Samoa Joe. It furthered Joe and Homicide. It built up Bryan Danielson. It built up Austin Aries. I mean, just everyone came out looking better and built a lot of intrigue going forward, which is something that Ring of Honor has kind of struggled with, in my opinion, in terms of like having cohesive storylines that link from show to show. Because a lot of times they'll have like, it's not like a lot of connected. It's like a tree with a lot of branches that are like all tangled. Like they're connected technically, but it's like kind of hard to like decipher what's connected to what. We come out of this show, I think, with a lot of
potential stories we can go for. We can go with Danielson Joe, Homicide Joe, Colt Joe. So we got a lot of title matches lined up on top of the rematch between Punk and Joe. So now, because Joe was starting to run out of challengers a little bit, you know what I mean? So now we got a lot of potential matchups to finish out the rest of the year. Austin Aries is even a guy that you could throw in there, which, you know, may or may not happen at some point. You got the Briscoes kind of feuding with the Rottweilers here, Homicide and Smokes. So I assume we would probably get like a Briscoes and Havana Pitbulls match maybe coming up because they're also a member of the Rottweilers faction. Colt Cabana, Second City Saints look good. Whereas the Prophecy stand, is Daniel's going to want to fight Moff and BJ for splitting off on their own? Is there going to be a new Prophecy? The Carnage crew, which we didn't really touch on because there wasn't a lot happening here. There's just a few random tag matches that didn't really amount to much, but we're building to a Carnage crew versus new Carnage crew. If you remember the whole shitting in the bags story where you had Masada and Danny Daniels break off of the Carnage crew to start their new Carnage crew. Now they're going to face DeVito and Loke at the next show in a match where I believe the loser has to disband. So we had a few promos and a few like scrambly type of matchups, but that weren't really worth talking about, honestly. But we got that. We got the new Pure title coming up, which hopefully they go in a better direction with that. I talked about that earlier. Tag team division seems pretty healthy at this point. A lot of good teams. So Ring of Honor is in a good spot right now. Hydro, Jay Lethal came out looking like a star. Jimmy Rave, where does he stand? Is he done? Just going through my notes. I mean, there's just a lot of good stuff. New era of Ring of Honor. The new logo, I think, is coming. New commentary. I mean, everything, right? So new ranking system. Contenders ring. Who could forget? So very exciting time for Ring of Honor and an exciting time to come along the apron bump and enjoy the journey with me. So that's about all I got for you guys today. Those were the big hits from June of 2004 Ring of Honor. We got July coming up probably in the next few weeks. We'll be touching on that once again. So good stuff there. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Once again, if you like Ring of Honor, maybe this was your first episode tuning in, hearing me talking about Ring of Honor, just know that I've covered every single show from the beginning of Ring of Honor up to this point. So if you want to check that out, once again, go to the link in the description, or just search Ring of Honor on whatever platform you're listening or watching this on. And binge away. I cover it chronologically. I'm going through this journey as if I was watching this live. It's very fun to watch. A lot of stars today came through Ring of Honor, and it's interesting to see the early iterations of that. And just good wrestling. A lot of stuff that modern day wrestling can learn from, honestly. So that's about all Daddy has for you guys today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Love you all. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, thumb in my butt, all that stuff. All right, I'm out of here. Mwah. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.